self-care, man. Self-care. We talked about it. Meditation, exercise, deep breathing, whatever that looks like for you. There's so many other options, and it doesn't have to take up. It's not like, okay, I got to go get a gym membership and go to the gym an hour a day. No. There's like things that you can do 3 to 4 minutes a day, small little things that make a huge impact.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Happy PharmD podcast. Today I have a very special guest back for the second time, Mr. Mitch Lee, host of ReTell Pharmacy. If you haven't listened to that other podcast as well, it is awesome. Welcome again to the podcast, Mitch. Thank you so much for joining today.
Chris, I'm stoked, man. Thanks for having me. I'm just so ready to vent. I've got everything on the surface and it's about to bubble over. So I hope you're ready.
Well, I think this will be, I am, and I hope this will be helpful as well, since, you're right in, the midst of everything going on. You're right in the middle on the front lines. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. So, man, just fill us in with, since last time, what's been going on. And obviously I would love to talk about the shift you're seeing personally, since, obviously, not only just when the pandemic started, but now with vaccines coming out. And
man.
Everything in between.
When was the last time I was on the show? How long has that been?
Oh man, it's been at least a year.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been long enough to see that beard of yours grow out. Looking pretty nice.
Hey, I don't think you had one last time either. You were pretty clean cut last time.
Was I clean cut?
I don't think you had a beard last time, to be honest. Okay. Or maybe you had just shaved it that day or something.
It's funny because I kind of like you, like we talked a little bit about this before we recorded, but like I've had like something there for years now, and patients will walk up randomly sometimes and be like, regular patients that I've had for 5-6 years, like, hey man, that's a nice beard. I see you growing a beard there. I'm like, yeah, I've had it for years.
That's actually exactly what I was like when you said that to me. I'm like, well, maybe right now it's a little longer than normal, but also like, I don't know, you just with not going outside as much or wearing a mask, you just like, you don't really notice it anymore.
What if it's like, you heard of like masking? People are getting like breaking out because they're masked. What if there's like a mask beard? It's like you're wearing the mask so long that you just don't care about shaving anymore. We should do a study about that.
It could be. Actually, it is interesting. I have heard of like even like some people even with the tugging of the mask on your ears causing like other different issues where it's like messing up the muscles like in your jaw, and like I've heard a lot of things, or like causing like headaches and stuff.
Yes. All right.
I've heard a lot of
I'm so digressing from your question. I'm ready to.
No, you're good, man. So fill us in. Everyone's like, what are we talking about?
I want to speak to that real fast. Little pharmacy hack for everybody out there working retail or just wearing a mask all day long. Okay. You got the mask going around the ears. I have terrible behind the ear, what would you call muscles? There's not muscles back there, like behind, like I can wear a mask for like an hour and all of a sudden like behind my ears just like ache, and I'm like,
yes.
So you get a rubber band, you put 2 paper clips on the rubber band, and you paper clip the ear loops to the ear loops go connect to the paper clip behind your head, and so you got this. It doesn't actually like loop behind your ears.
So it relieves all that tension. Yeah.
Telling you. This is why I'm on the show. That's for that only. Like you hear nothing else, you get a life hack.
Edit pending. Mitch Lee is going to have that coming out pretty soon. That'll be the next one.
Yeah. Man. All is good. It's just been crazy. Like not much has really changed personally. We sold a house and now we're in the middle of buying a house, which is crazy. Right now I'm in an apartment complex, so I'm with my recording. I can't really yell as much as I want to because I have neighbors on the left and right of me. But so it's a crazy time to be going through that, especially with everything happening at work. But right now it is all work. It's all COVID vaccines. It's it. And it's so funny because with my show, people were sending in things about COVID vaccines, horror stories, great stories about feelings of satisfaction with their job. I was like, oh man, how is this going to look? So I was trying to prepare myself as much as possible. And I don't think anything could have prepared me. It's not awful. Like if you catch me on a bad day, sometimes I'm like this, okay, I'm going to quit. This is the most horrible thing in the world, because there are tough times that I don't want to pretend like those don't exist. It's not horrible. It's just a level of stress and responsibility in retail that I've never experienced before. And I've been doing this for like 17, 18 years. I've never experienced anything like it before. So right now it's like COVID vaccines are obviously at the forefront. And it's weird. It's like everything pharmacy related, filling prescriptions and all that is kind of like taken, like it's on the back burner. It's like not our main focus anymore, which is so strange to me.
Yeah, it's
You
totally
get a
new.
phone call.
Totally new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get a phone call about someone wanting to refill a prescription, or they're wanting to transfer a prescription or something. And you're like, oh, so wait, you don't have a question about COVID vaccines? Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Of course. Yeah. And so anything, and someone coming up to drop off a prescription, especially now in the age of e-scribing, it's just so foreign now. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're dropping off like a hard copy. Okay. That's so weird. Now, I will say that this is just going to be obviously my experience. One thing I've learned from the show, which is also very interesting, is that every pharmacy has obviously different versions of the vaccine. Some pharmacies aren't even vaccinating, period. Most of them are. And every single pharmacy is doing it completely differently. Their setup is different. The number of vaccines every day is different. Some are doing a wait list, some aren't. And that's not even like differences company to company. It's like pharmacy to pharmacy within the same company.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's so different across the board. And so your average patient, they're calling around trying to figure out if I'm not eligible, how can I get on a wait list, or how do I get the vaccine? It's like, well, this company, you got to make an appointment online. This company, you can go in and ask for it. And, it's weird. So it's got to be stressful for the patient. But as someone who works in retail, you get that question. Yesterday we counted 100, 125 phone calls for a COVID vaccine wait list. And
Wow.
it got to the point where our staff is literally answering the phone. Pharmacy, our COVID vaccine wait list is full. This is Mitch. How can I help you? Like that's my literal new phone answer.
You kind of, yeah, you kind of have to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I hate to I hate to shut patients down so quickly about that, and I understand people want it, but it's crazy, man. Like I understand from the patient's point of view, wanting just inquiring and call, and it's so cool because a lot of times I'll do that and they'll be like, oh, that's why I'm calling, thanks so much. And some patients will even say, well, thanks so much for what you're doing, I'll call back later,
And that makes it, yeah, that makes it like, obviously
which
all
is
worth it, right? When you hear that at the end of the
so
day, it
cool.
makes your day so much better. And
It is. And I'll say for the most, for 99% of the patients coming in to actually get the vaccine, or even though they have to wait in line for like a while, they're so thankful and they're so excited and they're so happy. But then you do have the phone calls where, our vaccine wait list is full, and well, tell me about the wait list. How do I, where's the best way to get on? When should I call back? How's the wait list work? And you got to spend all this
yeah,
time. So it's when I say upside down world of retail pharmacy at the beginning of every episode, like my little opening for my show, it's never been more upside down, in my opinion, than it is now, just because the focus is completely shifted.
yeah,
Again,
yeah,
not bad, just
just
extremely
different. Away
stressful
from what, yeah,
and different.
if you rewinded when you graduated to ever think you'd be
Oh,
doing
come
in
on.
this situation, it's probably didn't even cross your mind.
The last time you and I spoke, if you were like at the end of the interview, you're like, hey, Mitch, by the way, the next time we talk, everyone's going to be wearing face masks. We're going to be doing vaccines for this thing called the coronavirus. Like, okay, maybe I should go ahead and get out now, or at least buy stock in Pfizer. I don't know.
But yeah, so I would love to hear your take on and any stories you've heard, but or that you've experienced. But I would love to hear your take just like on the kind of like the shift. So right, last year in March when this kind of we heard about it going on in January and February, we're like, oh, we'll see. A lot of people were more kind of saying it was going to be like a flu, right? It was just
Yeah.
going to be maybe a bad flu, or if even. And then it, really shifted gears, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is really happening. And, you start wearing a mask, and I remember the first time I wore a mask, I was like, it almost felt like you were about to like go rob a bank or something. I remember I went in to get a coffee and I had a mask on, my beard and sunglasses. And I'm like, and I think I put on gloves too. And I was like, man, this just feels really weird. I'm like getting ready in my car and like about to go get a coffee. And I'm like, this is just, it was just
It's
so
strange.
odd, right?
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine having to do that. Obviously you're not wearing sunglasses at work, but a mask and gloves
Mm-hmm.
and everything inside, and still, face to face with people. So I would love to hear just like that shift from, last year and then to now with vaccine. And of course we've talked about the vaccine part, but
Sure.
how is just the environment and just like the
Yeah.
overall feeling of pharmacy change for you?
It's been obviously a huge change. It's helped a little bit that it's been so gradual. Like you said, when it first started, it was like, okay, what's going on? And I remember several episodes on my show getting frustrated because patients weren't treating the flu with the same respect they were treating COVID when it first started coming out. That's when face masks and hand sanitizer were completely sold out, and everybody we're getting all the phone calls for that. We started tallying phone calls for that just for fun. And I remember talking about how many cases we had, and I was like, "Y'all, it's only at like 500 cases in the U.S. Come on, like, come on, this is nothing. Like, this is going to be over in 3 months." I literally said, "This is probably going to be over in 3 months. We can move on with our lives." And then obviously it started, going up and up, and there was this point where I'm like, "Okay, yeah, this is a really big deal." I remember being the first. I remember being the first one to like wear a face mask at work. I remember doing this because it was starting to come around before it was a mandate that it was a good idea. And it was like on NBC News or something, they taught you how to take a handkerchief and fold it in a certain way and then loop it around a rubber band and like make a mask. Because at that point, masks
It
were
was hard to get. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, they were hard to get. No one was making cloth masks at that point. So I was like, okay, maybe this is the responsible thing to do. So I put it on and talk about like I'm just gonna call them ear muscles on the back of my. This is not a thing, but behind my ears, like I lasted like 10 minutes. I was like, okay, I can't wear this thing anymore. I can't breathe. So I remember that. I remember plexiglass first coming up, and you know, it's it's been interesting as a healthcare provider in retail pharmacy because patients can literally walk up off the street and just ask you a question, and you're trusted. You're a trusted individual, whether you're a technician or pharmacist. Your patients trust you, and so they hear something on the news and they're like, "Oh my gosh, is this true?" And they'll a lot. At the very beginning, they would come to you or at least call and ask about it and ask what they should do and basically like tell me what to do. Which is kind of like an honor. Like, okay, thank you so much for trusting me with this, but with what I think a lot of the patients didn't really grasp, and they still don't with right now with the vaccine, is like we were all kind of learning as we went.
Yep. You read my mind.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we were
Exactly.
all learning as we were getting information from corporate, which they were getting information from CDC or whoever. We were listening to the news just like patients were and trying to provide the best accurate information, but then all of a sudden it would change. And so it was very fluid, and it still is.
Yeah.
And so in fact, with the vaccine, I remember telling a patient they were wanting to they were frustrated because they couldn't get on this waiting list. And they were asking, well, what's your system like? Because I called this other pharmacy and they're doing it this way. And I'm like, man, I literally just kind of had this like personal kind of I let the wall down. I was like, man, I'm sorry, bro. We're just learning as we go here. Like we're literally doing the best that we can. And
Yeah.
because he wasn't having all the answers I was trying to give him. So, but the evolution to where we are now, it was gradual. And with each, I would call like stage, like um, plexiglass went up. That was a thing that was kind of like, okay, this is new and this is going to be a challenge. Then masks became mandatory at work. We're like, okay, this is new. This is going to be a challenge. So were all these things, as all these things happened, obviously everyone handled it differently. For me personally, there was there's this innate thing, not only having the show, but like being a pharmacist and you have your technicians there with you and and you have your patients. And so you want to maintain this level of like, okay, I can take some stride. I can, it's a challenge. We got this, we can do it. And I was probably a little more human than that. There were times when, especially when these things, each stage would happen at like plexiglass, face mask, like all these things would happen. There would be a moment where I would get kind of angry. Like I would get angry at first, and because it was out of my control, and I was like, no, I don't want like change. I'm not a big fan of change, by the way. So I'm like, no, this is like what is happening. This is so frustrating. And then patients would call us and get frustrated about similar things. But then once I was able to vent or scream in my car or whatever it is, then after a little while you kind of get used to it and you brace it, and then you kind of
Well, I
go
think
with
you
it.
touched on a great part there. I think like I was going to ask you this too, and I definitely want to get back to a little bit more of how it's transformed for you guys. But do you feel like overall, like I can think this kind of wraps together, like mental health and overall just like your team, like your pharmacy team, let's say. Do you feel like at first you guys were kind of fighting it together, or did you feel like it brought you guys closer in the end?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would say I would say it has the potential to do both for sure. Right now, COVID is breaking up pharmacy teams left and right, or it's bonding them together like they've never bonded before. And I feel like we're the latter. I think as a pharmacist, like I did actually not like patting myself on the back or something, but I did kind of see a path to how this could really, really like make people want to quit and walk away, and it's every man for themselves while we're in the midst of all this. And hopefully I'm trying to while I'm there, trying to create an environment of like, all right, guys, y'all, today really sucked. Like, it was awful. I get real and get on their level. Like, this is awful. Thank you so much for what you did. Like, this is not the norm. I told my tech that last night. Yesterday was an absolutely insane day. It was completely insane. And at the very end, I was like, just remember, man, this is not the norm. And he's like, I know, you know, like we can do it. So I feel like we're kind of coming together more. I feel closer. And I think that if there is some sort of, there's not going to be some sort of like day where this is all going to be over, but if is some sort of major milestone where like maybe the plexiglass comes down, or maybe we learned that most COVID vaccines have happened and herd immunities happened, or whatever. We're all going to go out together and celebrate or do something and have this like moment of like, we did it together,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not the case probably in most pharmacies, but I don't think that most pharmacies are staying like status quo as far as how they work together as a team.
Yeah, no, I could see it disrupting, everything, right? Not only
Yeah.
workflow, but also just working together. But
Mhm.
and I'll at the same time, I feel like it's an immense amount of pressure kind of put on yourselves and your teams. And everything's
Yeah.
changing all the time, and then patients want to know everything, and trying to see what how they can get the vaccine quicker, or what have you.
Yeah,
But and sometimes you're kind of being filled in last minute potentially, or everything, because everything's
exactly.
changing all the time. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, and it's understandable, right? You hear one thing, kind of like what you said, everything was changing. I remember when this was so brand new that they were, at first, I don't think they were recommending masks unless you were like a frontline health worker, or like
Oh,
hospital.
that's
Do you remember
right.
that? Like they were like
Yes.
really a big emphasis on like, it's probably
Like, save
not
the
needed.
mask for the frontline people.
David, for
Yeah.
because they didn't want to run out of it, right? And they and then
Yes.
and then there was like, I remember it was just one day, and all of a sudden they were like, everyone should wear a mask. Like, you should, if
Yeah,
you
dude.
get
It feels
one,
like
you need
forever
to wear
ago.
a mask. But I remember
Yeah.
them. So I can totally see also where patients were getting frustrated, and then kind of like, but what's like the best thing to do? And a lot of times it was changing so quickly.
Yes.
And I could see
Yes.
that with everything going on in the pharmacy too.
They're like,
So,
give me a black and white answer, right now.
and
What do
it's
I
and
do?
it's in a lot of gray area, unfortunately.
And I don't blame them for wanting that. And
Of
if
course.
it's interesting if you think about them wanting that, and I'm like, listen, I don't have a black and white answer for you. It's gray, but this is what I think is black, or this is what I think is white. But at the same time, when we were in the pharmacy, there were things happening that we were like, okay, what's going on? Like, what do we do now? And we would look to our district manager or the next person above us. And what I didn't realize at the time was I was doing the same thing. I was like, what do I do? Tell me,
Yeah.
black or white? Are we doing vaccines or are we not? Are we getting Pfizer? Are we getting Moderna? Patients want to know. And my district manager, I happen to be blessed enough to have like a really very approachable, really great one. A lot of them. Anyway, she's really great, and she was, kind of learning as she went, and she didn't have all the answers, and
Yeah.
she would just give me the
Yeah.
answers as she knew them. So I
Yeah.
was frustrated by having those questions, and then at the time realizing I was doing the exact same thing to people above me in my company, which is
Yeah, and I'm sure, and also the interesting thing is every state, every town, every area
yes,
is county, is doing it differently, right? Like you said, like different pharmacies are doing it differently, and it's even crazier when you turn on the news and one place is doing this and one place is doing that, and it's
confusing, man.
not a cohesive plan, right?
It's
So,
not. Yeah.
but yeah, so, and then share with me. So obviously now, the day you find out probably that everything is escalating in terms of vaccine rollout, and everything, of course, like you still have all the safety measures in place, but did that kind of put like a nice little sigh of relief for you guys, knowing that you could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, as these are rolling out and ramping up? Or is it still like just kind of go go go, and you're kind of not enough time to even look that far ahead yet?
What's interesting about that is, for me, I don't know. I would need to ask my staff how they're mentally handling that question, because that's a really good question. I think for me, whenever I'm at the end of a day like yesterday, if I like a good reminder that I literally say out loud to myself is like, this is for a bigger purpose, like a bigger. And that sounds so freaking cheesy. I don't mean to sound so like this is it's for the greater good, Mitch. It's it is for the light at the end of the tunnel for all this to be over. But if I could speak for my staff and just how we kind of talk casually to each other as we're working, it's kind of unfortunately right now seen as more like a huge, incredible challenge. Like what we've been given with the lack of support that we've been given to do it. And I've talked and heard stories from so many other people who have it so much worse than I do, and I don't know how they're surviving. I literally don't know how they're doing it. But with what we've been given, it's like the only thing we can do is focus. The only thing we can do is focus on getting to the end of the day. So every once in a while, taking that time to stop and realize, hey, what are we actually doing right now? We're vaccinating the public. We're we're doing our part to get this stupid thing over with and try and get back to some sort of normalcy. And that does kind of create a mind shift, but in the thick of it all, it's all you can do is just kind of to get through the next hour, the next day. And so all in all, I would say the stress has gone up in a way that you would think it probably shouldn't, because you're like, oh, I'm so excited about this vaccine. Here it is. Let's do it. But the way it's being introduced into the workflow and the amount of stress it's caused, that kind of overrides the brain right now for us anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is terrible, but we're going to keep doing it until it's over. But right now it's like, just get through the day.
And I really do like how like you seem to be trying to tie your team together and really just kind of, I love how you're like getting on their level, and I think that helps a lot, right? Just kind of being, hey guys, like I'm stressed too, but like at the end of the day, we're here in this together. Yeah. Let's do the best we can, right? And that's all you can ask for, right? Do the best you can, and it's kind of like, I remember my parents used to tell me that all the time. If I was hard on myself for like a bad grade or whatever, they're like, you try your best, or you're doing as best as you can, and then that's all that matters, right? And that's, in this case, you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, and it's, as long as you're, at the end of the day, you walk away from it like, I did what I could as much as I could. And
that's a good point. And that's a good point too. There are good days. I am painting it like we're just getting our butts kicked every single day, which is kind of true, but there are days that are not that bad. There are days where it flows, we have staff and everything's great, and then there are days where technicians, we don't have enough staff, or people call out and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst day ever. And yesterday there was a point where I was just leaning on the counter and just like rubbing my temples, and like and my staff was like, Mitch, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. We're going to make it through. It's going to be all right. We're going to get there. But for me, what I try and do with the show and with my staff is like, I'm not going to try and hide it and be like, all right, y'all, we got this. This is great. Like, we take it in stride. It's going to be awesome. It's like, no, man, this sucks. Like, this sucks for me too. Like, I'm not going to hide that, and people, I think they can, when they see the human part of that, they can identify with it. And if someone sees somebody else going through the same thing and they don't appear to be struggling in any way, shape, or form, it's almost not depressing. It's almost like, man, I must not be cut out for this, because I can't handle it like they are.
I think that's what a lot of pharmacists do, though, right? We're kind of like that. We pretty much are very hard on ourselves, right? We're huge critics of ourselves, and a lot of people are just, I was going to say with that, a lot of people are just really good at hiding it, I want to say.
100%.
Inside, and also that could be worse, though. You're holding it inside. That's, they might be way more stressed than you, and they're not letting it, even just venting. You're like this, kind of walking around and giving themselves a break, or walking away and just kind of getting some of that pressure out. I mean, if holding it in is actually probably worse, but also then you're seeing someone there who seems completely fine, and it's making you beat up yourself even more, which makes it worse also for you.
100%.
Which is it. But no, but I mean, I would love to, are you, I guess, well, let me back up. I know you do the podcast. Have you noticed yourself with all the stress at work and everything like that? Are you picking up new hobbies? Have you tried to like find new things outside of work to like during the pandemic to like make up for all this? Because I know it's been so crazy. I feel like I mean, for me, like I've been like cooking a lot more. I feel
like I'm like that's awesome.
So like, and I actually enjoy it, right? So which is kind of funny. Man. So like, well, what about you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think so. The number of hours for this have vamped up. So I feel like every single day off is so much more coveted now. And I talked about this on the show. I'm like, I'm putting this pressure on myself right now to make sure every single minute of every day off is maximized relaxation, which is like not possible. I mean, life still happens outside of work. And so with the house, with buying a house, that comes with a lot of stress. There's some family health issues that are going on right now with my parents. And there's just life happening. And so it's really difficult to get home and not have that come. And I don't even have kids, bro. I can't imagine. You said you have a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
I can't imagine getting home from work. I'm literally, I don't know how it's possible to get home from work and you walk into probably like not madness, but you walk into just loud noises and stuff everywhere. Like when I get home, it's like my wife knows, like, all right, I need to give Mitch space. Like, we're gonna turn the office on.
Yeah. Unwind for a little while.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then once he kind of decompresses, then we can talk. And that's so cool of her. She's been she knows what the season is like at work right now for me. But not a lot of people have that option. You get off work and you go into crazy town. So like that blows my mind. But so I say all that to say meditation for me. And I've always been one to think that meditation was some kind of weird religious Zen guru. Like, no, that's not.
So it's brand new for you since the
It,
pandemic. It's brand new.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I would say I started within the past 3 to 4 months ago, and I'm
Okay.
still really bad at it, and I can't sit still for very long. So my longest meditation is probably 10 to 15 minutes. And for those listening, like I'm not sitting there crossing my legs, holding my, like I'm not. That's not what it is at all. You get like there's so many cool apps out there, and most of it is about just deep breathing. It's about just being
Like
present in the moment.
mindfulness. Yeah. Yeah.
Mindfulness,
Yeah.
bingo, yeah, mindfulness, being present in the moment, deep breathing. And it's not like, there are some that'll be like, now think of your body energy flowing to your feet, and then think of celestial body coming into the room. And you're like, okay, well, like hold the phone. I don't get like that weird with it. It's just mindfulness, deep breathing, being present in the moment. A major thing that I love when I do a meditation is like they'll remind you like right now in this moment, there's nothing you have to do. There's nothing going on right now. You don't have to do anything right now. You don't have to, answer any questions or anything like that. And that reminder almost is enough. I'm like, oh God, this is incredible. So yeah, so that I would say my time is completely taken up with the show right now, buying a house, decompression, and then mostly work. But that when you asked that question, my first thought was like, Chris, no way, there's no time for anything. But then, yeah, that is something that I've introduced that I think if you want to give it a try, if your listeners want to give it a try, you can do it. It's a very small commitment of time throughout your day that can have a massive impact.
And have you and I also do, I mean, I've tried like guided imagery as well, and that seems to be like it's kind of the same thing with my meditation or mindfulness, and it's even just for 5 minutes, right? And
5 minutes. That's
it's
all.
like makes it even at the end of your day to try and like just help you kind of go to
100.
fall asleep easier, or
Oh, dude, it's
so
changed
many
my sleeping
yeah.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you that was gonna be my follow up. Do you do it at night then before you go to bed,
Oh
or do you
man.
do it when you wake up, or?
Yeah, there's one that I'll do, especially if I'm trying to still decompress. If I stayed late at work and I'm basically home eating straight to bed and I still have to decompress, there's one that I'll do that's like 15 or 20 minutes, and I usually don't make it all the way through, to be
Right.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate those. I feel like during the pandemic, like for a little while, like I was kind of having trouble falling asleep. Like I think my mind was just always thinking.
Yeah,
So
of
I did the
course.
same thing. And you're right. Like usually I think they're like usually 10 to 20 minutes, depending on
Yes.
whichever one you pick. And like, yeah, I don't think I've ever finished one.
It's amazing. It's
Which
amazing. Yeah, it's like
is,
this. It's
it
a
is.
secret that I feel like it's always. Well, it's not really a secret. It's something that's been out there for such a long time that I didn't really access.
Yeah.
But there's even ones you can do for, like you said, 5 minutes while you're in the car. You don't have to close your eyes while you're doing this. While you're in the car, just deep breathing, and they'll kind of walk you through a couple things in the mind while you're on the way to work, and it's a game changer.
Actually, that's a great recommendation, especially for, I'm sure right now, and you probably can relate to possibly getting like just anxiety on your way to have to, go administer vaccines, or just trying to mentally prepare yourself, almost like kind of like the Sunday blues, right? Like
Oh man.
I know traditionally retail, you don't really have the weekends off, but if you had Monday, the fear of going in for Monday morning, but same idea, because
Yeah,
you have work tomorrow, right? So I think you said you have work tomorrow. So like
I do. I
today is
do.
like your Sunday, right? In a way.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like, that's very normal. I feel like a lot of
I think
people
so.
have that, but even just like you said, kind of like getting yourself relaxed before you go in and just kind of,
Yes, it's huge.
yeah,
It's I think it's super important. I will say, and everything that I'm talking about, I guess, with the vaccines and about work, again, I don't want to just make this sound like it's the worst thing ever. Again, there are awesome days and there are days that I don't dread going in, But one way that's changed my mindset with work that I'm trying to right now, I'm trying to navigate because I don't think it's very healthy, is the thought of dreading work. I've never wanted to do that, and I found myself doing that a little bit now. Again, not every day, but there are days that I kind of see coming up. I'm like, okay, Wednesday of next week, I don't have a lot of staff, and we have this many vaccines scheduled, and how is this going to work? And so there's this anxiety leading up to it. And I've never, ever, Chris, ever dreaded work. There are times where I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to stay in bed, but I've never been like, oh God, please, no, like, let me hold on to my last few minutes of my day off, so it's never been something that I've done with the
Yeah.
ReTell Pharmacy. And I'm finding myself doing that now, and I don't like it. And I think that there's a way around it, and to navigate it, meditation is going to be some part of it. Running, that's part of something that I do too, is that hasn't changed with the pandemic. It's probably more important now. It's become more of a priority to get a run in. Like I ran right before you and I were talking, and just make sure. And that doesn't have to be a run. I could just be exercising, going for a walk or something like that. But that's huge. It's all these pieces together, I think, can come together to help you not dread it. But I'm still trying to navigate that and get to the point where I'm not dreading work again. Not every day, but it's starting to happen a little bit, and I need to.
Well, of course, and it makes sense, right? It's been a crazy over a year, or longer than a year, right? And
yes, yeah.
it just seem to never ending almost. But I think a big thing also is I feel like almost time management would help a lot, kind of like trying to continue a normal schedule. Just because right now it's so easy to just kind of like go to work and then go home and just not do anything, since you kind of can't do anything. So like you said, like fitting in meditation, fitting in running, trying to keep like a regular set schedule in a way to kind of, or like I've even heard things of, even if you do work from home, like still dressing up, like it makes you more productive, which is very interesting. In terms of not like just wearing like, shorts and a t-shirt or whatever, and just actually dressing up like you would go to work in person. Like simple things like that can make you more productive, but also keep that sense of normalcy, which I think is very hard right now.
Yeah, you said you work from home too, and just a quick question for you, like from working from home, what's COVID done? Is it just made everything insane for you, or just working from home has been still business as usual?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think the biggest thing is just like we were talking about before. I think just like that, missing the in person, like seeing your coworkers, and I think a bigger thing would just be the separation of work from home. Like especially with the little one, I feel like you kind of just even that commute time. I think I didn't treasure it at the moment. I used to think of it as okay, like you have to get up a little earlier, and then you have the traffic is depending on the time of day can be rough, right? But like now it's almost like I kind of miss that, just like you said, you coming home from work, right? And you have that, your wife kind of like allows you to decompress even for like maybe 15 minutes, half hour or longer. But it's just like you kind of need that, and sometimes it's kind of like you don't have that anymore, right? That drive home would be like my decompress time. So I think that's a big thing, but also you have its benefits, right? You can,
of course,
you don't have to drive to work. So that's like that is a benefit in a way, and you kind of look at that as getting more time back in your day. So it has its pros and cons. I think the biggest thing though is missing like seeing people. Like
that makes sense, man. That makes so much sense.
So like for me, like I like on the weekends, I go out of my way. I'm like, let's go outside. Let's go.
I've got to be around people.
Do something.
Of course.
So I think that's a big thing for me now. And I do like to try and like run most days and just kind of. But a lot of times, luckily nowadays, I try to. Yeah.
Nice, dude. Heck yeah, man.
But awesome. Yeah, I mean, I feel like especially with the days lately have been shorter. Now they're getting longer, right? So I think that's also getting more sunlight. It's just helps a lot. Because even before, when you'd finish work and you want to go for a run, but it's dark and you're like, oh, like it's nice, but it's like I want
a mental
sunlight.
Thing. Right? 100%.
So I think, So, and I'm not the biggest morning person, so going for a run in the morning is just not my thing.
That's tough.
It's like my end of the day thing if I want to do it. So
tough.
I'm looking forward to the days where it stays light out till 8:30, 9 o'clock. Like that's my favorite.
It's interesting. You and I talked about right before we recorded about you were saying about the benefits of staying home, and also like how the grass is always greener. Like I 100% concede that a lot of people who work in retail right now are like, oh my gosh, if I could find a stay-at-home job. My technician, my like one of my strongest technicians, she is now only working like 10 hours a week because she found this stay-at-home job where she works for an insurance company just doing prior authorizations over the phone at her house full time. And my first thought is like, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing thing ever. If I could only find a pharmacist job, which they exist, obviously, where you can work from home but someone has to die for that position to open. There's no way to get into that. It's not like that's going to like solve all your problems.
Yeah.
Like you said, like it'll be awesome for like 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 2 months. And then you're going to like, okay, I have to get out of here. I have to see people. So it's interesting to hear that. Cause yeah, there are times where I'm like, I got to get out of retail. I got to work from home. That'd be great. And it's not the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that goes with a lot of a variety of situations, right? But that's a great point. And I tell, like, with coaching, I tell a lot of my clients a lot of them were like, especially I think I'll back up the pandemic. I think it's kind of thrown people into that mode, like, oh, like everything can be remote, and like it's
Yeah.
like the dream, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a very specific type of personality in person to like be able to do it for long term. Like that's I think like
Agreed. Oh
because I
yeah.
think especially like let's say for yourself, right? And that's a big position, or a big way I word it is to people is like, you see people all the time right now, so can you do the same thing, or something similar, but never see people face to face? Like, you might be talking to
Ooh.
them, but would
Yeah.
that be okay with you? Like, could you actually do that for all the time? And it's kind of like, when you spin it that way, you're like, some people are like, oh yeah, like I'd be fine, like I don't need to see people, right? But then other people are
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like I kind of need that, like
I think I just
in
thought that way.
person. Like, so like you kind of like, because some people are like, oh, like that's awesome, like I can just work from home and like don't have to drive, and like
Yeah.
save so much on, maybe if you drive far, like save so much on gas and time. But it's like, yeah, but like also for your mental health, like it's kind of, you kind of need to
Oh,
see people. So like it has its pros and cons, just like you said. And I think I've spoken with a lot of people, not only in pharmacy, and a lot of people are like the hybrid, like doing a little bit of both. So like
oh,
maybe like a couple, like that's what, where people like, I think a lot of people want the in between. So like, which I maybe we'll see if that ever happens,
the
depending
sweet
on.
spot. Yeah.
But like in terms of like, some days you're on, you go to work, and some days you work from home. So you, and like all in during a week, which I think would be probably nice, because you get the best of both worlds. You can separate.
I think I just like as you're speaking, I'm thinking now of it's the perfect pharmacy job. It just hit me. The perfect pharmacy job is, yeah, working from home, but like 1 or 2 days
You
you
could go
do
on
go
person.
somewhere and have
Yeah.
patient interaction, but not that much. That's like maybe the sweet spot. That's what it is. I got to figure
Yeah.
out how, where that job is. Hop on that real fast.
So yeah, so I mean that's what I've been hearing. A lot of people, like not even just pharmacy, like in general, people who have been other a lot, any profession, a lot
Of
of them have
course.
been from home now. So like
Yeah.
speaking with others, and they're just like, yeah, like it'd be nice to just do a mix. So but yeah, like as we wrap up, Mitch, I would love to hear for all those listening who are struggling right now in retail, in pharmacy in general, or what have you, any profession really. I mean, I think everyone's going through a lot. This pandemic is something that none of us have experienced in our lifetime, right? And it's
Right.
affecting everyone, mental health, physical health, overall, just wellness. And I feel like, what are some just quick tips that you would recommend to those who are just, overwhelmed and trying to push through, and things like that? I know we talked about a few that you do, but I guess we'll
Yeah.
make it more personal. Let's go into like those other retail pharmacists who are just really struggling right now.
Of course. Yeah. I think that's a great question. Not I don't want to oversell this message because I say it on my show all the time, but knowing you're not alone is huge. I think that it can be very isolating to think that, especially if there's the appearance that everyone around you has it all together and they're okay with everything. And also that if you decide to walk away, or that you have to keep doing this job at a certain level, or you're gonna get let go, and someone behind you is going to take their job, and they're going to be fine with it. Everyone, like you said, everyone's struggling right now. You're not alone at all. I mean, in the way that you feel, if you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're sad, if you're going home crying every single night at the end of a shift. I have people sending in stuff that they're just in tears at the end of the night, every single night. That's happening to everyone in retail pharmacy. So number one, you're not alone. Number two, this is something I have to tell myself over and over again, is that it will end. And that is something that we were more easily able to tell ourselves at the beginning of this, because it was all new. And now it's not new anymore. Now it's the normal. And in your mind, normal is going to continue to be normal. It's like, no, 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 no. This is not going to be normal for a long time. There are new strains coming out. That's kind of scary. There are strains out that are scary to think about that, about a third vaccine, a fourth vaccine to get, or vaccinating every year, like the flu, whatever. But things are going to get better. They're going to change for the better. This, in my opinion, Chris, this is the thickest of it right now. The vaccine has just come out. Everyone's scrambling. There's eligibility. Some people are eligible, some people are not. This is the absolute toughest time. And it's kind of, I'll say I take that with a grain of salt because I did at one time in my life say that this was only going to last 3 months. So I'm not obviously an expert. So in my mind, though, this is probably one of the worst things to get through, and we are going to get through it. And all of us are dealing with like the same thing. And the last thing I'll say is self-care, man. Self-care. We talked about it. Meditation, exercise, deep breathing, whatever that looks like for you. There's so many other options, and it doesn't have to take up. It's not like, okay, I got to go get a gym membership and go to the gym an hour a day. No. There's like things that you can do 3 to 4 minutes a day, small little things that make a huge impact. Try if you can, try getting to work 7 minutes early and just sitting in your car for 7 minutes in just complete silence before you walk in. Stuff like that. It's unreal how much that changes your day. And in the midst of a pandemic, when everyone needs you and it feels like everyone's just take because everyone's asking questions and you're vaccinating and your technicians have questions, or you're a technician and you're getting overloaded with questions from your patients. It feels like self-care is the last thing you need to do because you have to focus on everything else. But if you, at the risk of sounding cheesy, if you focus on that self-care, you're going to be able to provide better for your patients and all the responsibilities you have to do. So I cannot overemphasize self-care. I think those 3 things are the things that I'm focusing on the most to get me through this. And I think we are going to all get through it together for sure.
Oh, I love that. And I feel like just to hit on that last point there, I feel like you can't be your best, pharmacist or just person yourself without taking care of yourself first.
Absolutely.
Right? If you abandon yourself and completely just put it to the side, it's gonna not only hurt you, but it's gonna hurt the way you.
And I suck at this. Yes, I suck at this.
But it's so hard to do. It's so hard to do.
I don't. There are times where now that our hours have kind of increased, I'm running less often, but when I run, it's longer. But so there'll be 3 or 4 days where I don't run, and that usually wasn't a thing. And there'll be times where I'm like, oh, I haven't done any kind of deep breathing or whatever we talked about in a couple of days. And I can see it, man. I see it at work. I'm shorter. I'm snappier. Yesterday I snapped at my technician for something that I was just this morning I thought about it. I was like, man, that was so dumb. I shouldn't have been so frustrated. All of this is bringing out frustrations for everyone. And so I don't want to say that at all. I've got this figured out and I've got, I'm in Zen mode and I'm pushing through. I just think those things are super helpful, but you're not going to get it right every day.
Yeah, baby steps, like you said. But I love it. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way that they can do that as well?
Yeah, the podcast is ReTell Pharmacy, ReTell Pharmacy. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, so DMs, any stories you got, let me know. We can talk about it on the show. And Spotify. Yeah, that's it.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Mitch. I really appreciate it. Again, it was a pleasure having you on. I hope we can do it again in the future, man. I appreciate it.
That was a blast, Chris. Thanks so much, buddy.
Anytime. Hey, everyone. Thank you again so much for joining me today on this episode of the Happy PharmD podcast. I really hope you enjoyed my discussion with host of ReTell Pharmacy, Mitch Lee. I just want to emphasize the importance of self-care as we drew the conclusion to this towards the end of the episode, where even for us, we've really noticed just that importance during this pandemic. And I feel like this is just becoming so important for everyone to focus on this right now, as this time has been crazier than any other time really that most of us have experienced. And it's so important to notice, to take care of yourself, during this time, to not just forget about it and brush it off with all the craziness, whether it's work, personal, or everything in between. It's so important to take that pause and really also work on helping yourself and to help you get through this time with the pandemic and everything. It's just so foreign to most of us to focus on ourselves and to try and improve ourselves and help ourselves, and especially as a lot of us are struggling during these times. So just want to bring up the importance of that. Also, huge point that Mitch brought up, you are not alone in this. We are all in this together. please reach out to us with any questions at all. We would love to speak with you. We'd love to figure out how we can help you and work on whether it's future goals or just, just have questions in general and just wanted someone to speak with. We are more than happy to help you. Again, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see you next time.